Hey folks, welcome back to the table. So we're gonna do the 8th Air Force. It got the most votes, and I don't know. I mean, it looks like the easier of the two to ease into. Let me first start by saying that I'm not very impressed with this game so far. As you know, I don't like paper maps. I won't whine about it anymore because I know a lot of you do like it, and I won't talk about that. But the components. This was a $70 game with shipping. It was, I think, a little bit even more. It might even been $80. I'll say 70. Let's just say 70 to call it safe. Look at this. This is, it tears. And then it even peels away. And I know people have told me you need to get a rotary cutter. And you know what? Screw you if you're one of those rotary cutter people. If I'm paying $70 for a game, for example, the DVG games that just arrived, I have the DVG Air Leader expansion. I punched out dozens and dozens of pieces, and every single one of them was crisp, clear, pop, 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 pop. They came right out. There is no excuse to manufacture a game that requires a rotary cutter just to pop the pieces. And I'll show you because I saved what it looks like. This is the situation. It's these crappy spines. So you have these little tokens, and then you see there's really strong, like you can't even get it to like break apart, like no matter what I do. And so then you're sitting there like, okay, I'm gonna pull on this. And then as you pull, and then what it does is it rips. So the rip here, of course, is this part, the spine, right? And then, you can try to take that off, which, that's actually I can live with the little knobby. I know some people would pick that apart. But then, you pull on these, and then what eventually happens is they tear. And I get it. The rotary cutter is the thing that overcomes this. I should not need a rotary cutter for an $80 game. If you want to sell me a game that comes in a bag for $25, then I'll buy a rotary cutter. For an $80 game, that's as expensive as a Fantasy Flight game. Top quality, top-notch production game. There's no excuse. And I'm sorry, I know the Flying Fortress Games is a small company, and I know that Flying Fortress Games probably really wants some good reviews, but screw you, Flying Fortress Games. You just produced shit. And I'm not saying that your game's not fun. That's not the issue. But the quality of the components is shit. And I got more for you. This is some examples of a tear. See how it tears on the bottom, and this BF-110 tore part of the BF-110 of the one below it. And you can say, well, Jeff, it was your fault, it's your careless fault. Not for an $80 game, it's not. Nope. An $80 game should be able to overcome somebody using their hands to pop the counters. And before people go even more ballistic on this, I have some further evidence. Right here. See these little white, see a little bit of white there and there? That's the actual name of the token. BF-110, ME-252. Half of it, or a quarter of it, is not even on the counter. So everything is shifted. And I have further evidence. Look at the crap component here. Look at this white bar along the bottom here. And the name, ME, see, that's an ME what? 163? Hell if I know, it's all cut off. And that's not me, it's not my fault. See that? That's an excellent, cared, even a rotary cutter couldn't have done better. It's because all of these components were shifted up. And so if you looked at the counter sheet, at the top, some of the letters is in the actual isn't even on the chit. So when you pop the chit, you know, you lose all those letters. Well, every chit below it was also shifted incorrectly. And that's what I mean. And so it was just a small section. You can see here it only goes down to here, right? And then it stopped. And this, by the way, was all just, you know, white pieces like this was. So it's just junk. And so these were all shifted up, and then this was like, it was this kind of situation. That's what this was. And you can see the name of it's completely, I mean, yeah, I tore it here on the corner. That was my carelessness or whatever. But even if I would have done it perfectly, this name of this plane is gone. And that's what I mean by it's crap. And for the amount of money I spent, I should not have to deal with crap. Now, with that being said, as I'm going through the rules of this game, I think the name is not as important, but from a narrative perspective, I think a lot of you would appreciate having, you know, the actual squadron and group number and stuff like that on there. So anyways, I'm going to stop with my component route. Well, no, I'm going to do one more. Just look at this. So this one tore in such a way that it went up like that. And I don't have this problem with any other, well, I have this problem with war games. I don't have this problem with any other real game. Let's put it that way. And, or let's just say a Euro game. Heck, Hasbro. I can go into Target and buy a $20 Hasbro game and the pieces will punch better than this. That's why this is bad. It's just, I just cannot. Oh, look at these. Look at these here. These are the P-51s. See this little green bar in the bottom? That's because the P-51 was shifted again. They're not supposed to be green. The green is the German planes. These are the American planes. They're supposed to be this, you know, whiter background with the blue letters. There should be, and here, let me just show you as a contrast. To the right, that B-24 is the way it's supposed to be. Look at that green. It's all misprinted. Their printer didn't even get it right. And then, of course, I have this, which if I try to do this with my hand, it's just going to rip even more. So all of the P-51s, you can see, have the green. And no, that's not some design thing. Because look, here's a P-51 that does not have the green or has a very minimal green. It wasn't a design thing. It was clearly just a manufacturing derp-a-derp. You know, and well, maybe that's just how they mark their fighters. Nope. Here's a P-47, clean, green-free. Okay, it just, I'm gonna stop. So let's continue and let's go into setup. So then the next thing is the rules. They're awful. This game is really annoying me, and I don't know if I'm going to have enough courage to do the Japanese one if it's going to be like this the whole way through. I'm still hoping there's a good game here because I do find it interesting. But the rule book could be a lot better, and we'll get into exactly why. First thing, you want to sort all your components. The American planes are going to have these blue numbers, and you want to sort them by their number. And you'll notice that I think in almost all cases they're, you know, in the case of these, the number 1, you have A-20s and A-26s. So there are different types of planes. But I think in this game, the number is what matters, and everything else is just flavor, okay? So I'm not sure it matters that I separated them out. We're going to find out. But that's what you want to do. You want to do that with the American planes, and you want to do that with the German planes over there. So you're going to want this sheet next to you, and then there's this other sheet that I have over here. So I basically put one on either side. And then you're going to want your targets, which look like this. So these are bridge targets. This is, I don't know, it looks like infrastructure. And this, you know, being an infantry and an armor, basically just put all those in their own little tray, separate them, or however you want to do it. Here's some train targets. And then I think I have some, these look like V rockets. Okay, so, separate them out, make their own targets, stacks, and then the last thing you need to do is you're going to have these green twos. Two is, what these are called squadrons. These are groups. These are squadrons. Okay, squadrons are just generic. See these 3 itty bitty planes up here, and then a big 2. That's a squadron. Groups are actual named planes, and squadrons are just, I don't know, if you want to think of it, like if you've ever played Axis and Allies, and like when you start running out of infantry or tanks, you would put an infantry, and then they'd give you these little white poker chips that you'd put underneath the infantry. So each poker chip sort of meant that was another infantry, right? So that's how you would represent more than one infantry, because the miniatures, you only had so many of the miniatures. Well, that's what this sort of is. These are the white poker chips that you just stack on. These, of course, are for the Germans. And then for the Americans, we have the 2s, and then you're going to want to separate those from the 1s, okay? Now, what does a lot of this mean? Well, the groups are, for Americans, they're either going to be fighters or bombers, okay? And if they're fighters, they're going to have deep, intermediate, and somewhere in here is coastal. Okay, this one, coastal. And the rules don't explain it to you, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory, although I confess I took a minute to think about it. When you look at the map, coastal is going to be these. This is the intermediate, and then this is deep in the back, okay? So there's 3 layers to the German onion here, the European onion. Okay, so the fighters are going to have an escort range, and that's what I was getting at. A fighter will come with a fighter squadron, right? So you'd put a fighter squadron with a fighter, and then they would stack like this. And the rules do say that it's unlimited, how many you can stack. Okay, a bomber would be stacked with a bomber squadron, and the bomber squadrons have the 1 on them instead of a 2. This is a bomber squadron right here. Okay, they look like they are bombers here. They're a little bit bigger, so that's one other indicator. And I think the number, of course, is representing its attack strength or fighting strength, and a 1 is going to be worse than a 2. Okay. So now that we got some of that nomenclature out of the way, let's talk about the setup. So obviously you put the map in front of you. The other thing that you're going to do, well, let's just start at the beginning, and then I'll explain what I did along the way. You're going to want to spend some time there, explain what the different counters are and what, all the different values mean. This is the B-17. It's Group 34. It's got an air combat factor of 3, and it's a heavy bomber, and then this is the range because it's a fighter, blah, blah, blah. One thing I forgot to mention is that all German planes are fighters. There are no German bombers in this game because they're defending. They're not attacking. So it's nothing but German fighters. So any token you see that's German is a fighter. It's only the Americans you have to have a distinction. And I also know from the Japanese, just peeking at it, there's no American fighters in that one. So that would go away. So that's some of the differences. Okay. So with that being said, then they talk about squadrons, which is what I just explained to you. And they explain what the different targets are. And there's a certain type of targets that are called heavy. They are the infantry, oil, and aircraft factories. Those are the heavy targets. Now, you didn't see that when we were talking about our components because they're on the board. And we'll get to that section. You know what? I won't go through anything else. Let's just start with the setup. The first thing that setup says is place the victory point counters at 0, 0, and 0. So on the top right here, this one will be the easiest thing that you'll figure out in this setup. is that you have a victory point 0 that goes on the 0. And then the 0, 0 goes on the 0, 0 up there. So don't burn your brain cells on that one. It's as straightforward as it gets. So up to this point, I was thinking, yes, I got it. Next it says, place the turn counter on January 1943. Do you see January 1943 anywhere? Neither do I. Do you see January 1943 anywhere? I do see a 43 here, but that's not what it means. Nope, no January 1943 here. Do you see a January 1943 here? Nope. How about up here? There is a January 1943 right here, written as this one little line. See that little itty bitty line? And they gave me this token that's big enough to cover 3 of the lines. And I'm supposed to place that on January 1943. I'm pausing for effect. This is the most stupid thing I've seen in a long, long time. No, actually, the more stupid is Hitler's Reich that tells you to put your starting ships in the place on the map that says starting ships, and then you find out that they forgot to print it on the map. That's the stupid thing. Or Night Fighter Ace that has the different phases of the moon wrong. This one is up there. I mean, what the F am I supposed to do with this big token on this tiny 1943? But that's what it is. That's the only place in the game that says 1943. So I don't know what to say or what to do beyond that, but that's what it is. Okay? I do, and by the way, the map does say coastal in red here, and I keep saying intermediate, but it's interior and then deep. You know, it is written in red, which is a little hard to see, but it does say those things. The 1943 thing is the most epic failure I've seen in a long time. I truly don't know what they were thinking with that one. Okay, so once you get past that, then we place the submarine bases as active. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you've got these little tokens that you're going to find here called bombing campaigns. And let me zoom out a little. And this little sheet, I mean, it's straight for me, but obviously for the camera, because I don't have enough space at the edge of my table to put my camera straight without me putting my wobbly hand on it. The sub-bases campaign is here. These are the list of campaigns. And this says start, 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 and you just want to put it on the start. So basically, that campaign is active. And I will pick it up for this so you can see it a little more clear. Out of all these campaigns, the railroad campaign is not active. Basically, we're targeting the submarine bases, is what they're trying to say. Okay, so those are active. The heavy targets are also always active, and that's the next item. Oh, and then we're supposed to put Brest and Saint Nazaire on the board, and that's these two. So here's the submarine bases. So you'll have a little submarine token, and you put those on. Okay, simple. The rules are back to normal again. Next, it says place all the heavy targets. And the rule book also says somewhere else that heavy targets are always active no matter what. So we have an active campaign called the sub-bases campaign, and then these heavy targets are always active. So basically, my understanding of this is that right now the submarines are active targets that we can go after, and then these heavy targets are always active targets that we can go after. The airplane targets are going to look like this, a little propeller on them. They're going to have a green circle around them, and it's pretty well done, actually. I have to compliment them on this. You know, it says Munster, and then there's the word Munster here, and then all you have to do is look for the green squares to know where they go, and the picture matches. I mean, that's very well done. You know, Duhlman for the oil, It clearly says Duelman on the counter. And by the way, these counters punched really well. So it was only the aircraft ones that didn't. I mean, if you look, I'm not tearing these ones. So for whatever reason, this was a really good batch. Like even within the shipment itself, I had some counters that punched really nicely and then others that did not. And then the oil is surrounded by red. And then you're going to have the factory, which will look like this, and they're surrounded by black. And for example, Berlin has all three. So bing, bing, and bing. All right? And then you just find their respective spots on the board. There's one token for every spot, and that should go very smoothly for you. It's also a nice check on, did you get all your components, right? You do get the phase, which once again, what the heck do I use it for? I have no idea, because the phases aren't listed anywhere, except for in the rule book. And that's not doing me any good. I think they had a player aid or something. That would be awesome, because then I could do that, but they don't, and I don't know what to say. So, then it says toss all the bomb target counters in a coffee cup. These are the bomb target, I mean, they look exactly like what they say. These are bomb target, it's damage counters, basically. So put them in a cup. So I did that. And then next, we have to place the starting U.S. Air Forces in front of you. Well, what are the starting U.S. Air Forces? Well, it says it right here in the rule book. 2 B-17 bomber groups, 1 B-24, and 1 P-38. Okay, so you're going to see 2 B-17s, 1 B-24, and 1 P-38. So this is our starting forces. Everything you see here is not, okay? So then, it's not done. Then it says each group has one squadron of its type attached. Now the rulebook is very subtle here. It does explain what a squadron is. It says of its type and then attach it. So you had to be paying very close attention. I mean, I think the rulebook could have been more clear on this, but once you read it, you'll be like, oh yeah, it says it. So this is a group, and it's going to have a squadron of its type, which is a bomber squadron, attached. So that one goes underneath, and then this will have a 2 because this is a fighters group, and then it would have a fighter squadron. So every one of them has a squadron attached. We basically have 3 bomber groups and 1 fighter group, okay? So hopefully that helps. Next is where the rulebook fails again. So it says, line up the Luftwaffe AT, which I think is attack start groups, in front of you, from strongest on the left to weakest on the right. Okay, so these are all the Luftwaffe attack groups. So I started to line them up, left to right, like you see here. They're listed, there's the number 10 going all the way down to 1 on the right. Thankfully, I understand a little bit of the thematicness and the history. Those 10s are the ME-262s. And Big Brain Jeff here is like, okay, I see that we're in 1943, so there's no way the ME-262s are supposed to be in the game. So something's not right. Well, it says the starting groups. Okay, well, which ones are the starting groups? The hell if I know. The hell if the rulebook says. But, you know, I'm sitting here pulling my hair out, trying to figure out what to do. And then in very tiny letters on the top of this sheet, it says start, which is covered up by my big ass counter, right? So this is covering up the word start. So that made my journey a lot more difficult. So that counter, which made me angry before, is making me even angrier now, because now it's covering up the thing that I'm looking for. And so I eventually figured it out, that this is the start. And then you see the U.S. Air Force. There's the 2 B-17s, the B-24 and the P-38, each with its own squadron. Oh, big brain. That was the part that triggered me. Oh, that's the starting condition here. And then that's how I knew that this was covering the word start. Okay, well then if you keep going to the right, it says Luftwaffe, 3 FW-190s, 6 BF-110s, a BF-109 SCH, I don't know what the SCH stands for, and no squadrons, okay? Now there are BF-109s that don't have the SCH next to them, so just make sure you grab the right one. And I did that. So I then put them here, and I lined them up from left to right. And then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to roll these dice. Okay, so I got a 2 green and a 5 red. And then it says, look at the new group placement table and place them. Okay, so here's what I did next. So if I rolled a, here I can show you. These 6s are the toughest ones. These ones would have been on the left, the FW-190s, right? Which was a really good plane for them. So in the case here, I rolled a 2, 5. Well, you can see there's a red 5 and a green 2, and I get a 2. In fact, this is exactly what I rolled, or something similar to this. I ended up getting one of these 2s. So I got a 2. That's all it tells me. So now I'm supposed to place it in 2. Okay. What does that mean? I figured it out, or at least I think I did, but again, it's another goofball moment that I just can't. I mean, the rulebook really just lets you down over and over again. So I'm looking here, and these big numbers, so I'm like, okay, well, 2. That means it's coming here. And that's exactly what it means. And the rulebook does say put it in the coastal region, which is here. So I put the 6 there. So then you go through all the counters and you place them one at a time, but the rules have one additional rule. So once this one was here, okay, so let's say I rolled a 2 again. I can't place a second one in any location until there's one in every location. So, and it says start at the bottom number and go up. So if I rolled a 2 or got a 2 outcome again, then the next one would go here in the 1. And if both of these were taken, then the next one would go into 3, etc. And so you can see that the 6s, of course, were the toughest ones. I have a 2, I have a 3, I have a 4, and a 1. So basically they all went in order. And then you can see another 4 ended up here in the 5th. And then it was nothing but 1s left. And so I didn't even roll. It was 6, 7, 8, right? You just basically filled them in. And then I continued to do my rolls, and then 1, 2, and 3 came up. So those ones get the double tokens. If you look at the chart, there's a lot of opportunities to get a 1, a 2, and a 3. The 4s, 5, 6s, 7, and 8s are a lot more difficult to roll. So that's the reason why, the distribution basically came out exactly as you would expect for the start. Now, this 6-1, 6-2, 6-3, what it's trying to say is the 1, 2, 3 is a post-retreat placement, which we haven't gotten into what that means. We haven't gone to a retreat yet. So you would just place in 5, 6, 7, or 8 on the coast. That's all you would do. Okay, so once you get through all that, you're done. Oh, no. There's one more thing. We had to roll one final time and place there's an anti-aircraft +2. And of course, this is just based on your die roll. And for me, it ended up in the 3 coast. So that's where it is. In your game, it could end up somewhere completely different. Excuse me. All right. Then after this point, it's telling you how to organize your counters. Make sure your 1s and 2s and 3s are stacked accordingly. For your planes, it's basically just suggesting all the things that I've already explained. Setup is complete. The only other thing to mention real quick is that the phases of the game start at phase 1 and then continue from there. But for the first round, after setup, you skip all the way to phase 4, RAF attack, mission construction. And it says that as the final, it says the game starts with phase 4. So even though there's a phase 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., you have to jump all the way to phase 4, which is here, RAF attack. And it's also listed as D. So phase 3 is add, remove bombing campaigns. Phase 2, and then phase 1. So anyways, just wanted to point that out and help you to understand that. The next video, of course, we'll get into the playthrough. And I was just studying the charts. This chart here looks like it's very important. It looks like this is a reinforcement chart. So as you go through the game, you're going to get reinforcements, and it tells you exactly which ones come out. I don't fully understand, like I know this is fighter and bomber, but I don't know what the 1 and the 2 mean. But we'll figure that out because we haven't gotten to that phase of the rulebook yet. And so we'll dive in and go. I just want to make sure that you understand that I'm not going to do a practice game. So when I do this recording, this is my first game. And for those of you new to my channel, I do this all the time. So don't think that I'm just doing it to be lazy or something like that. My viewers and I, we like to do this where we go through it together. So most other YouTubers don't do that. And that's just how I roll. I don't want to be like the other YouTubers. So the one risk, of course, is that I can get a rule wrong. But we usually release an errata video or try to, the viewers will help me in the comments. But that's fine. We like to do this. And then usually I do a second playthrough after I get, through the first reaction of the game. And if I do a second playthrough, then of course it's a lot cleaner and the rules are going to be crisp. If I don't do a second playthrough, it's because I hated the game. That's my honest answer. Sometimes it's because I have a huge backlog, which I actually do have a very large backlog of games. But that's usually what it boils down to if you don't see a second playthrough. So anyways, that's it. Checking the time, that was only 32 minutes. Well, thank you very much for watching, and as always, stay awesome. And yeah, we'll get into this. We're going to start in phase 4, like it says. And, you're going to join me. We're going to go through the rulebook together. We're going to figure it out. And I got all the pieces sorted like they told me to. And then let's see how this game plays. And it better redeem itself because the components have left me with a very sour impression. But if it's a darn good game, then I'll still be very happy to have it. The designer is a very nice guy. He posts in our Solitaire War forums. I really don't want to say anything bad about anything other than just the components stink. So, hopefully those of you who are listening can make the distinction that the components stink, but we still may have a good game. We still might have a good company. This is still possibly a great designer, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, that's all. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome.